to him to tell him, and I'm like,
Trajectory, so.
and I was just like
However
trying to
long it
get
takes,
that.
we're
I was
ready.
like, no, I need a house. Well, I don't know if it's the timing of something, but I need to figure out how to get that better for you. I hear the heels. Hello. I'm like, I hear the heels.
My kids make fun of me in the morning. Like, they'll mock me, and it's just my heels running across the floor. Everything's an emergency in the morning.
I love it though. At least they know, like, uh-oh, it's getting closer.
Right.
I feel like it's just been a like,
That coat, my goodness.
Oh,
it's
an
tricky.
illusion.
It is tricky.
It is tricky.
Unless you're having like direct sun on you, it's like, oh, it's perfect. But once you step into the shadow,
Yeah.
you feel the real temperature.
It's amazing what the sun does. My goodness. Like
feel like it
areas
should
of my
be.
classroom today, the sun was shining and it was warm. Like in
Yes.
those.
Hello, hello. I love that.
Are you guys getting away for spring break?
I'm going to Tucson with Bill.
Yeah,
He has a
great.
work trip, so
Very nice.
I get to go hang at the pool while he's in meetings.
Right, that is the best situation.
I was thinking.
It's just an understanding that there'd be more rules.
Because also makes me wonder if that would be good. How would just be sitting down and understand what's going for us or so wait. I'm just trying to think
Yeah.
of
Yeah, some of it is just, I mean, it's one-on-one.
yeah. Correct.
Because they think.
Otherwise than what it actually is. So for me, it was re-educating me. And also
That's what I'm checking. Let me text Jose real quick and I'll just keep going.
yeah, I was just thinking about that. It's like going to
Yeah, we have had other people.
You didn't hear what I was when you first came in, DeAndre. I was like, I'm gonna start calling you esports from now on. That's my nickname for you.
It's the brand.
Wonder if you forgot.
We have quorum. We'll get going. Okay. All right, welcome everyone. I'm going to call this meeting of the Finance Committee to order. Today's Monday, March 27. Welcome. I do not see any public comment, so we'll move forward to, I'm so sorry, we may have public comment. Ah. No problem at all. We'll get it.
Wasn't far at all.
That's great. All right, Mr. Jones, we'll welcome you forward to give your comments today. And I apologize that I don't have the written instructions ahead of me, but 3 minutes is the amount of time allocated for public comment. And if you'll just state your name for the record And you're welcome to begin.
How you doing, everybody? My name is DeAndre Jones. I'm here because I wanted to talk about esports, but I also wanted to talk about NIL, which is name, image, and likeliness. It's something that students in high school and college students actually get paid now from different companies, and they can actually utilize their name instead of colleges and school being able to profit billions or hundreds of millions or millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars from these students. And so I want students and parents and people from all over the state, regardless. I just want to truly be able to educate our community, our school district, state representatives, whoever it is on NIL, because students are being able to capitalize. There's different companies sponsoring students, and they're being able to be fiscally responsible and learn some financial literacy and being able to take care of their family while they're in college or they're in school. And so, you know, hard times come and unexpected things come, and you'll need those finances. And so I want kids to be able to leverage their name instead of the schools that they will potentially attend. I don't know, right now I know at the state level, I don't think the state of Michigan has NIL yet, but I know there's other states across the country that actually has it, but eventually we will get there. So if you're on the board, I just wanted to educate you on that, just in case you have a student that's at GRPS and the state actually passes that law, and then our students are able to do that. Also, my esports competition, April 22nd, please get the info to the students, because I have a couple colleges that are really looking to come there. I got some organizations that actually has a gaming studio that pays students to actually work in a gaming studio, and they actually get paid to create games and do work and do AI, and do VR. And I was just at one of the schools checking out one of the VR where kids made an exhibit here at GRPS, and they made an exhibit, and I got to see artifacts, and they did it from a VR setting. So that was pretty cool, and these things are things that students are already doing. So please get the students to please, if they can, if GRPS has the interest of getting them involved in the esports competition, not only will we will be playing NBA 2K, but we also will have VR there. And I just truly have been working hard to create these opportunities for the students, so we can get these educational opportunities, so they can get full rides or partial scholarships and other scholarships that can also pay for their schooling, and so they don't have that financial burden. Thank you for the time, because I don't know where my time is, but
30 seconds.
oh, I got 30 seconds. Cool. Time just, I don't know. But I just really would appreciate if GRPS would really just engage our students if in this competition, because I haven't checked, but I really just would love our students to come and compete. I know there's students across GRPS that would love this opportunity if it was presented to them. And so, I mean, I just truly love our community. I'm doing everything I can. I'm passionate. I just connected with our president, and Steelcase actually has a gaming unit, and hopefully I'll get them to get some of that furniture at my gaming competition. So I connected with the lady that does sponsorships there, and she actually walked up to me. So please get the students engaged in what I'm doing, because I'm doing it for our community.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. I did see an advertisement in my daughter's newsletter that came home from school, from City High, so it's in there. The word's getting out.
All right, cool.
Yes. Mhm.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, now we'll move on to our business items. And the first is one of our GRPS finance training topics, which is donations. And so we're going to learn a bit more about the donation process here in GRPS. So Ms. Cribbs, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, we are just going to go down through the PowerPoint. Some of these slides have a lot of information. I'm not going to read it to you because you do have it, but I'm going to highlight a few things. So under our Board of Education policy for donations, one of the first considerations we got is looking at, are there going to be costs related to it that may not be covered by the donation? So that's one of the things. We don't want to accept a donation that actually ends up costing us a lot more money, potentially. So that's one of the evaluation things that we look at, is what actually is coming. Are there installation costs and similar items like that? The next, number 2 there, is where you see most of them come in is any donation of cash or non-cash products whose values $2,500 or greater shall be evaluated by our business office and then come through the finance committee to go to the full board. Number 3 is a slight nuance to that. We wanted to, it's not necessarily a real donation, but wanted to bring in some of our larger grants to make sure the board is aware if we're going to apply for one of the larger grants. Typically on this, it may come through, depending on what the opportunity is, it may come through like the superintendent's weekly newsletter. Many years ago, we got out in front of one of our local foundations, and they weren't ready for things to be as public as what it came through. So that's where it's got more of a, you'll be communicated to in some type of method. So depending on what that would is, we'll work with the superintendent and communicate that. Does not apply necessarily to like when the state aid and state budget comes through. Those aren't grants that we really apply for. They're just part of the state aid process, so. Again, these are, when we get inquiries of people wanting to make donations, these are some of the things that we try to accumulate information on so that we can prepare those donation memos that you see. One thing that we try to be more intentional about in the last few years is making sure we get that information. So you can see some of our examples there. We do try to send thank you letters to the donor. Depending on what it is, we may ask students to do some artwork thank you notes for us, especially for at the last board meeting when we had Sherry Lynn Noe, and she's doing the coat donations. We've been asking students to make some of those because Sherry Lynn is the front for it, but there are a lot of other donors behind it. So like to give her some things that she can also share with some of the other donors. So there's some of the processes that we use to do donations. And I think, and afterwards we do circle back to the director and the principal that we've done all the things that we need to, that it's gone through the board there. Some of our more recent donors come through, and they're listed here with it's Sherry Lynn Noe and Friends, the GRPS Foundation, Spartan Nash, Fifth Third Bank, Fox 17 has been doing the book fairs, Heart of West Michigan United Way, and the Doug and Maria DeVos Foundation. One of the things we've been asking, we used to accept some gently used donations. After COVID, we're asking for new. Not wanting to go down that road. And so we're asking for all merchandise to be brand new. We typically will work with our communication department to identify which buildings have the greatest need at the time for the donation that we've got available. The other program that we try to show a lot of attention to is our Homeless Scholars Program, and make sure that they've got donations there. That program uses some more unique items, or like the personal health care items and those types of items that are easier for smaller donors to help provide. So some of the donations have included, at the time, school uniforms, school supplies, toiletry items, books, and winter apparel. And we went back for items over calendar year 2022. And it varies by month, so we just went to the board agendas to look at different donations that came in. So over the 22 calendar year, it was over 200,000 of items that were donated. And some of that was clothing, some was school supplies, and school resources is a kind of a wide range of things, whether it's field trips or the classroom materials. We did get a donation for the football locker rooms, staff training, and other, not random, but miscellaneous type items that came through there. Any questions?
On this particular slide, yeah.
Okay.
Is there What's the rationale behind not doing the donation summary from the actual academic school year versus the calendar school year? Versus the calendar?
We were
Just so you can like actually see what fell through during the school year. I was just
Yeah, that's
wondering
what I
if
was
there
gonna
is a
say, we
reason.
just didn't go back that way, we can,
Okay.
but just picked a time frame.
Okay. I didn't know if there's.
And then since we're only partway through this year, it was kind of like, well, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Any question I had?
Any other questions? Okay, thank you for that overview. We'll move on to our action items today. Just one, which is our purchasing agenda.
Okay, I will just go down through them. The first one is to modify a blanket order that we set up last summer for electrical service and repairs of our fire alarm systems to increase that blanket purchase order. Our s-
Before you continue, last time we had this overall meeting, we talked about having a little bit more details beyond the blanket order, which you agreed to do. Is that was there a different attachment that I just didn't see?
Transparently, this is more detail that has, yep. But I hear you that that you need more
No,
or
I
looking
ju-
for a bit more.
I just remember us, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, maybe when
Yeah.
I thought the consensus was around like when we see blanket or there's additional increase, like it was like, okay, what's causing that? What to be, and then we said we would move forward with that. So I guess I was looking for those, but I didn't realize.
Yeah, that's
Additional
okay,
money.
right? We always have the opportunity to we can always add more and better describe. So, can you give us a bit more background on this one in particular?
That's what I was gonna
Yeah.
say. It's gonna kind of be a work in progress as we
Yes.
adjust this.
Okay,
So
okay.
just bear with us, keep asking questions. But in general, a lot of our it's hard to anticipate at the beginning of the year on our aging fire alarm systems, what types of repairs are going to be needed, and what they will cost. It will also be a lot of materials are costing more these days than they did even a year ago. So it's adjusting for that.
Got it. Much like how the custodian services were with. Okay.
Yep. Using that same vein,
Thank you.
is the next item down is going to be our engineered protection system. So that's our security systems. And again, we've got some monitoring, installation, and repairs as well. So it's adjusting that blanket to where our expense is coming in, and it is sometimes hard to anticipate what we'll actually need for the repairs. And if we're going to install something new, I know we tried to think ahead of what we're going to maybe need to adjust or install something new, but we're coming up at the end, towards the end of our fiscal year. You're almost a year out. It's time to adjust some things. Times have changed type thing, so.
So will this mean that these are changes that's needed for this FY, and next FY there will be additional line items for here? This is covering going into the next FY.
No, it's for this fiscal year. What we'll start to do in the next few weeks is contact all of the budget control officers that have current blanket orders, and ask them to anticipate their needs for next year. So we can develop a list that will come to the board for approval, typically either in June or early July, of this is the blanket orders for fiscal year 23-24.
Thank you.
Okay. And we've got another blanket order, and this one I'll give you a little background on, even though it's not here. So when we do our original budget for our buildings, we had our building budget meetings at the end of February. One of the things that's hard for buildings to really anticipate is what their needs will be for recess duty in the fall. So we'll put something out there for the blanket order we know we're gonna need some additional help for recess aides. So we'll put something out there. In the fall, the buildings will start to submit their plans of what they need assistance for recess aides during the year. Those kind of trickle in throughout the year as buildings adjust what they need. So this is where it's a substantial increase, but it's also trying to anticipate what buildings actually needed. So, coming off from COVID years, it's been harder to anticipate what we'll actually need.
So you're talking about the West Michigan janitorial one, correct? What, so why do we go through West Michigan janitorial for our recess aides? Is that not something that we just want to, do we just not want to hire directly through GRPS or EduStaff? Or, because I know I've done recess aid and cafeteria duty right through EduStaff. Is there a reason? I didn't even know we could do.
It's one of the options that we have. I mean, if there is a building where they have staff that are willing to work as a recess aide during their lunchtime or their, I don't know the right terminology, but
planning,
a non-work time for them. If they
Right.
want to do recess aid, then we can do it. So, and that's the other reason where sometimes it's hard to anticipate, to know which option they're going to do as they develop their plan. West Michigan janitorial is one that we've typically used for recess aides rather than EduStaff.
Would it be cheaper to, or is it more costly to go through a third party, or a different contractor, or different entity than just saying, hey, GRPS is going to hire this staff for this specific duty?
Typically, it's more cost-effective to go through
It
the
is.
third party.
Okay.
And then also, these types of positions, it's not like a full-time position.
Right.
So sometimes it's easier for them to staff these shorter, we need you for an hour at lunchtime
Okay.
And then we're
position.
not worried about the liability and cost of insurance, all those other things that come along when you hire someone directly versus using like a third-party entity.
Right.
They kind of cover the additional cost that gets affiliated, so we save that way.
And that's part of it. And also, if we pay people, they become a part of the ORS MIPSR system, the Michigan Public Employers Retirement System. And those costs right now are substantial. So it's usually more cost effective for us to use the third party and pay their administrative fee than to have the MIPSR's retirement costs.
Thank you.
Okay, oops. There we go. Moving down, and when Ms. Schottky and I were going through this last week, we had the question of what does WIDA is. So I had a little history lesson. I'm like, I knew parts of it, but not all of it. But apparently, back when they were developing these testing and assessment and supplemental supports for English learners, scholars, and students, they, Wisconsin, Delaware, and Arkansas were developing the system. As they neared the end of the completion, Arkansas dropped out, so they had to come up with a new name. And it was world-class, and nobody seems to remember what IDNA stands for. But at this point, everybody's just calls it WIDA. So when you see WIDA, just think of it as a resource assessment material type thing for our English language scholars. So what we've been trying to do there, we've, in the last few years, our Section 41 funds have been increasing. So we continue to look for additional supplemental materials that we can use to support those students. So that's what this purchase is.
And can you clarify what Section 41 funds go to? Do they go to English language learners or
Yep.
what? Okay.
It is state bilingual funds.
Okay. Thank you.
It's a state aid categorical. The next item down is in amending our contract that we have with Scholar First, which is Dr. Campbell, for the additional work that she's doing this year. The next one down, we're going to use ESSER funding to purchase additional library books for GRPS libraries. This is an item that sometimes GRPS Foundation has helped us with, so we're looking at using our ESSER funds.
Do you know what schools in particular would benefit from
I don't
that?
have a list of what schools, but I can check with the media services.
Do you mind doing that,
Yep.
please? Only reason I brought that up because I don't know if you remember from our what meeting was that?
Ad hoc facilities.
Ad hoc
Mhm.
facility. I talked about Union High School not having what I would call a sufficient library for their scholars, and so wondering if they're receiving some of these funds to go towards the books for their library.
Okay, I will check.
And could you explain to me what the Bullet Content Solutions LLC, how that fits?
Who the vendor is? Is that what you're
Yeah.
asking?
Oh,
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm not sure how they, I think it, Follett is one of the big publisher companies.
okay, thank you. That's
Yep.
what I needed to know. So we're purchasing the books from them.
Yes.
Okay.
And so that is a substantial increase. Did we just decide, hey, we want to spend more money on books? And
I
okay,
think
that's
part of
basically
it. We've got our
okay,
ESSER funds
right.
and looking at ways that we could
utilize the funds. and-
utilize the funds to
Right.
get more resources to
Okay.
students. So it's like, we have the funds, so
Right. Yeah, no, and books are essential.
yes.
Absolutely.
A good question. I'm not sure. Do you want to
Yeah.
ask that?
Okay,
Yeah. Mhm.
I'd like to ask the wisdom. So I guess I'm wondering for the particular book donation, is this the vendor is deciding what books they are going to give us, or we get to decide what books they're going to be giving? Who
Our
does?
staff works through that, whether, I think it's our media services staff that works under Jonathan Harper, and typically Roseanne Wall, who is our ELA curriculum supervisor, is also involved in those decisions.
Perfect. I brought that up because I recognizing that we have so many different cultural backgrounds and represented in our district. I'm hoping that the books selected that is going towards this are culturally sound to what we represent as a district, for others to also learn about other cultures that's represented in the district. So I don't know who I need to ask and or talk or inquire about that. Just
Maybe an academic committee thing?
is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Academic chair would be appropriate to ask.
Thank you.
And certainly, I know that that is a value that is well shared from district administration. So
Oh, perfect.
I
Thank
would
you.
feel confident that those books would, yes. Mhm.
Thank you.
Good.
Moving down to support materials, we're looking to increase or upgrade computers for our food service kitchen managers and the point of sale workstations throughout the district. That's one as we are continuing our Windows 11 upgrade. Many of our food service computers and point of sale were so old that you couldn't put the Windows 11 on them. So it's kind of, again, we're going to ask to use our ESSER funding. We tend to use things well past their normal useful life
Do.
in GRPS. So we're looking to use some of our ESSER funding to get us upgraded.
So will that be in specific schools? Because I know having worked in GRPS, I just sometimes see them with like their list of like paper, hey, checking off like what kids are doing, what, and not necessarily ordering products, but is that something that every school utilizes? Is a workstation? And is this going to be a overall like every school gets a new like workstation to work with, or just certain schools?
I think it's going to be every school.
Just every school? Okay.
The next item down, we're looking with our ESSER funds, we've been able to put a music production lab into Elder and to Riverside in the last couple of years, and I'm not sure of the timing, but it's been with ESSER funding. And so we're actually, another way to use some ESSER funding and be equitable among buildings, we're looking to add one into Westwood as well. The next one down is using ESSER funding to buy purchase and replacement of new risers throughout the district. Many of our risers that our students are using for performances are very old, and wanting to have something that we know is safe and available in more sites. So hopefully what we'll look to do is have them in more sites so you don't have to transport and move them around the district. So hopefully they won't get as beat up as we transport them between buildings. But we will look to have a set as well that are portable and could be used at other sites as well. This is one of those items when I did the ESSER presentation of looking ahead to how can we be in a better place after ESSER funding is gone. And so this is one of those things that we typically would have been piecing together. Oh, we'll still use these old risers for another 10 years type thing. But like, you know what? We have an opportunity to get new and better, safer options for our scholars.
What do we do with the old ones?
I'm not sure. It probably depends, you know, if they're still
State.
safe and usable, we'll still use them. Probably just maybe shift them around, or there'll be additional space as well. So we tend, like I said, tend to use things well past their normal useful life. So if we're getting to the point and discarding them, they're probably not
Usable.
for other purposes.
Sorry, before we get into the final bond projects portion, and this doesn't have to be a topic of discussion for today, I'm just wondering, all of these, you know, purchasing agenda items, I guess, how do they come before the board? Like, who decides? Well, I'm assuming you're probably like, okay, you know, the final, right, the final boss in all of this. But are there things that don't get approved that we don't ever see? Are there discussions of things that, like, you know, people would like to get funded that, you know, come to the board and then we discuss them? Or is this just like hey, these are just the things that we feel appropriate to take to the board? Do you understand what I'm asking? Or I don't know if I'm even making any sense. I just wonder, like, are these the only things that are prioritized at the current moment for purchasing using ESSER funds? Or is there a list of items that are, you know, being proposed, that are being spoken through with Dr. Roby and her staff that are yet to come to us? Or is it just like, as you go, these are the things that come to us?
Are you asking specifically about ESSER or just in general, how our
just-
purchases?
Well, because I know, you know, ESSER funds, right, you have to go through the entire process of like applying, right, and all that. I'm specifically talking about ESSER, and if there's like, hey, these are general needs that we believe the district needs, and let's, you know, start checking them off and see if we can get them all funded through ESSER. Is there such a, I don't know, list of topics, or is it just like, as, you know, one-on-one as they come, we approve them and don't really have like a general idea of like?
I say typically I'm going to go back to when we started doing this, we had several brainstorming sessions
Right.
and came up with our ESSER 2 and 3 plan.
Okay.
Over the last couple of years, we, you know, are having to modify that, like I talked through when I did the presentation for the full board. Times have changed. Some of the things that we plan to do in the ESSER 2 and 3 plan are no longer, as we got the later guidance, it's not allowable under
Right.
ESSER. So we're adapting. The process that we're going through now is primarily going back to a lot of those control officers and department heads and other people and saying, okay, how do you modify? What new items have come up? And that's like the risers isn't when we were meeting with Maggie and talking through fine arts needs. Like, okay, what is there? And we had a couple choirs that were trying to do performances, and we're looking to use risers that are old and need
Right.
to be replaced. So she's like, and that came to her mind. It's like, oh, I need risers. So it's just kind of working through control officers and department heads about how do we want to modify that initial plan. Primarily, we haven't gone out back on a full listening tour of additional items.
And that was kind of my follow-up as well, as, you know, we have this money to spend, and I know well, obviously, since, the new board members have gotten on, that, the other section of ESSER spending was already kind of predetermined as we got in here. So I'm just wondering, like, what, as you just said, like, is there going to be another listening session to kind of figure out where this other spending can occur?
We'll probably do a modified version of it because as we rounded out our plan, it's not, we don't have the 75 million still available.
Right,
And looking
right.
at what that looks like. The other thing that we're still balancing a little bit is the things that we had originally planned for, like athletics and some of our facilities things. We've had additional facility needs arise over the last year and a half. So we're probably going to look to be doing a little bit more of that supplanting to free up some general fund dollars so we can address some of those more immediate facility needs as well.
So that's where I think I'm here. If I'm, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jose, but this is where I think I'm piecing together now. What he was asking is, with those readjustments, now understanding that there was adjustments made because now we are more informed about what we can or can't do. If there's changes that are occurring to the way that ESSER funds are going to be spent, I guess, one, are you asking how are we informed about that? And two, does that come before us or what is that process? Is that what you're?
So partially, yes, is like, I do wonder as those changes occur and as we get more insight as to like, okay, this is where you can spend this money is, well, even how often do we get informed of the changes in the process? Again, I'm coming in like, at the tail end of this, right? So I don't even know how much the board was informed prior, to us coming in about, hey, this is what we plan on spending. Oh, actually, the terms have changed. Now this is kind of the direction that we're going. Is that something that has been the case prior to, January?
I would say in drops over time. So not a comprehensive, these are the list of the way things have changed, but certainly my experience in serving on finance has been that I understand that certain things are no longer allowable, that we're moving focus around so that we can be a healthy financial district when our ESSER funds go away. And so I would say as a board member, I don't feel, none of this is a surprise to me.
Right.
But what I hear you asking for is, was there kind of an intentional public way in which we said, these are the comprehensive changes?
Yes.
And that has not happened, I don't believe.
No, and that's one of the things we've been trying to work with control officers to be able to have some type of revised plan to some extent. What we're trying to do right now is get an application revision into MDE and get their thoughts on it, because I don't want to take something out to the public and then take it to MDE and MDE's like, no, there's no way you could do that.
Right.
So it's like, I want to get a pretty solid approved plan by MDE and then take it back out to say, okay, this is where we are. We're coming into the home stretch in the last year. Not at that point that we'll make huge changes, because unless at this point it will be, if we're going to do something different, what are we not going to do? And there will be some things that we've got in there that are still estimates. So that may be something we choose not to do, or if if our estimate we put in is high and we come in lower, then we'll have some additional funds to be able to hit some additional new items.
So in between you gathering intel from, excuse me for not using the exact language that you try to capture that, but in between you gathering intel from any of the
Control officers.
thank you, control officers, that's what I was looking for, that term, and applying or resubmitting to MED, we are not informed until after MED is
Michigan Department of
yes,
Education.
MDE. I keep
There you
thinking
go, yeah.
of that. we're not informed until after that's been reviewed and approved.
That is,
That's what I'm taking.
that's where I'm headed right
Okay.
now, but.
That's what I thought.
But we're still using as the basic framework that the plan that the board did approve 2 years ago. Time flies. A year
Yeah,
and
probably
8
about that.
Not quite 2
Mhm.
years ago, because I believe it was in the summer. So
Yes, agreed. Yeah.
And ultimately, this will be the last. I don't want to keep going back. I just, want to keep going as well. The only reason I ask is because, just having been elected into the board, and now I have constituents like who know about ESSER funds, right? We all are aware of ESSER funds. And so when folks ask, it's my right perception that, okay, well, this money is already kind of accounted for prior to me having even gotten on the board. And that's something that I want folks to understand. But also I want to ask, is there wiggle room to like, hey, this is something that wasn't considered prior to, to the past election, but now that there's 4 new members on the board, like, is there still funds that perhaps could be, used for something else in place of another, purchase item? And I guess that's why I'm asking. And I don't know. I'll have to do some thinking about what I'm even trying to get at myself, because I feel like I'm, like I'm making sense. Okay, because I'm just kind of thinking out loud. And I guess really that is the reason that I'm asking, is just to figure out how set in stone all these purchases are.
Where I think what I'm hearing you say is the gap in between. So earlier you mentioned about if a item is no longer available, or there is a reduction in the cost of what we anticipated, then those extra, or not really extra, I'm using that very loosely, those funds are therefore now have to be reallocated. And so what I'm hearing is, in that reallocation, where is the insertion to be informed about what's being reallocated to where? And then also, what point of insertion are we allowed to provide feedback on those reallocations? That's what I'm hearing you say. Because that's where that small window room is, like beyond what's already been benchmarked.
Right.
Correct?
I'm wondering, Ms. Cribbs, I'm thinking about just our budget cycle and wondering if maybe May, June is a good time to revisit the prior ESSER application for just acquired knowledge on what was approved previously. And then we'll have a better sense at that point, as you're formulating our next fiscal year budget for our approval, as to what opportunities for adjustments might exist, if any. Was that
Yep. I'm
timeline
ready,
feel?
making that note.
Okay,
We'll
great.
look at that. The other thing, just one of the things that I know to throw out there of changes that have happened. When we did the original ESSER 2-3 plan, we planned to have like 3 mental health therapists. But as we heard from our community that mental health was a significant area of concern and need. So over the last year, and I'm going to probably not get the exact, I think we're at 16 or 18.
That's what I heard was 16.
Yeah, so that's one area that significantly increased, as we heard, changes. One change that we're going to have to make with our SR2, had conversations last week after we had submitted our SR2 amendment earlier this year. There was one line item that they had questions and concerns on, so we were able to talk to the person from MDE last week. And the vehicles that we had planned to use out of ESSER funds are not, we would really have to go into a really kind of gray area about whether it would actually be approved. He was very concerned about it, and so my thoughts and conversation with him is I would rather move those expenses out and put something else in, which will likely be salaries to supplant, because I'll have to charge those vehicles into general fund. So that's, as you see Amendment 2 come through, you'll see some adjusting there. Because of wanting to get those vehicles out of the SR2 grant. He felt it was way too much into the gray area, and we don't want to go there. We don't want a federal auditor to come back 3 years from now and say,
That's right.
that's not allowable, because then we would have to come up with $1 million at that point, and we we wouldn't have the flexibility that we've got now. So
And what purchase is that? that you're-
vehicles, we had purchased vehicles for that, under for operations and for security.
Okay.
So
And also some multi-passenger vans too, right, for transportation?
we had
Did
talked about
yeah.
vans, but we haven't actually gotten
Ah,
to
very good.
ordering them.
Mhm.
In addition, there's a couple that, there's been a really long lead time on those vehicles. It was over a year after we ordered them before we actually got any of them. And we still have two of the larger operations trucks that are still on order. So that's one of the adaptations we've had to do. It ends up being a large dollar amount, and it has to want to stay out of the gray area. I don't want a federal auditor to come back in 2 years from now and say, disallowed.
So, okay, and now, I'm so sorry, like, the more you say, the more the questions pop up. So, so purchases such as vehicles for the district that we thought perhaps may, as you said, are in the gray
They were in our original
area.
approved application.
Right, so I guess, what is the rationale for just going ahead with the purchase that probably would not have been funded through ESSER instead of just saying, well, it's not ESSER approved, so we're just not going to do the purchase? Because it sounds like I know we did get some vehicles.
That's what I was gonna say, they were in
They
the original
were.
approved
And then
application.
MDE came back and said,
That is
never
okay.
mind, we feel like this is too gray, you should
Yeah.
amend your
So
application.
now
So that's
they've
the
gotten-
frustrating part of the experience.
So it was,
Wow.
the purchase happened prior to MDE saying this is actually not an approved item.
No,
When
they
we
approved
submitted
it.
the
Sorry,
original
Eva.
application, it was approved. We started processing the orders. Now, a year and a half later, we've gotten the vehicles done and we're doing an SR2 amendment. They've gotten additional new guidance and heard of other states that have gotten into,
Wow.
I don't want to say trouble, but had questions raised. And that's where now he's coming back and saying, you might be able to write it so it would actually fit and get approved in the long term, but you
No
probably don't
guarantees.
want to go
Yeah.
there.
So we've decided to
So
just
that's
take
where
that out
yep.
of our general fund.
Yep.
Okay, okay.
So just to be on the cautious
Right.
conservative side, I would rather move it now, even though it was in the original approved application.
But then you're trying to take something that is taken out of general fund and make it fit into what's allowable for ESSER.
Exactly.
So it's
Okay.
not like all of a sudden we have ESSER money available, you're just reallocating.
Yep.
Right. No, that makes sense. All right.
Yeah, it is a complex,
Times.
complex. Yes. Okay, thank you. So our commitment then to my colleagues here and to this committee is that in May or June, as we're preparing for that budget amendment and also our 23-24 budget, we'll come back to this for further clarity and certainly the ability for my colleagues to be able to communicate better to constituents about how this complicated, once in a
Right.
lifetime
I'm still trying to
experience. Yeah.
understand it
Same,
all, so.
right? Same, yes. Okay, thank you, Ms. Cripps. All right, one more item, I think, that's the bond projects.
Yes.
Great.
And actually on this one, I think it might be more appropriate to have Mr. Smart.
Sure,
come and
welcome,
join
Mr.
me.
Smart.
So while he's getting prepared, I have one question for you is overall arching. So I looked at the purchasing agenda and I've noticed with the school lunch purchasing of new computers, which I think is necessary. That's like almost like maybe the third or fourth computer item that has come before. Is there a reason why it's just not lumped in as one versus it keep coming back? Because it's giving the appearance like, okay, didn't we just approve this
I think as
versus?
MIS is working through various groups, it's easier for them because we have so many computers through the whole district that they'd start to look at different groups. So we've looked at custodial, what do they need? Let's get that purchase going. Okay, now we're looking at food service, what do they need? Let's get that purchase going.
Okay.
We've done some for like our secretarial group as well.
Mhm.
And so I think because we've got so much, if we waited till we had everything, we wouldn't keep things moving. They also can't deploy everything all at once. So doing it in groups
it.
makes it
Mhm.
easier to get it deployed throughout the district.
So it's safe to assume that we'll be seeing more
Oh, yes.
of those.
I was gonna say,
Okay.
that's one thing
Just-
with
Oh, yeah.
I wanna add
technology,
my
it's
expectation ahead
always
of.
moving.
Yes, most definitely.
Thank you. That was just a quick question. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, welcome, Mr. Smart. Good to
Thank
see
you.
you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's
afternoon.
good to see you.
Good afternoon.
So, on the bond projects, as you can see, we have a pretty big number right here. This is 100% related to the reconstruction of the north wall of the auditorium. Rockford Construction has done their due diligence to put together a comprehensive budget. And by the way, this is a number is inclusive of the cost for engineering and architectural services too. Later on, we'll come back to amend their contract, but the funds will be approved here today if you do so approve today and next Monday. The $3 million is a little bit shy of $3 million. It's actually about $2,981,000. We're just asking for a contingency for us to hold. Includes the demolition of the existing wall, demolition of the existing steel. It includes, obviously, the reconstruction of the entire system, including support equipment such as cranes and the pre-engineered wall panel system that we're using, and includes also all new steel that is necessary. It also has the CM, the construction managers, their own fee. And like I mentioned, we have there 6% for architectural and structural services. We're asking for an additional $400,000 as an owner control contingency, just in case we find something else that we were not planning on. And that brings us to the total that we're asking for today.
So is this around what you were expecting? I know we were going back and forth for asking some questions. Is this a little bit higher, a little
It's
bit
a little
lower?
bit higher than what I was hoping
Okay.
for. I was expecting a little bit less than that. We did push very hard on Rockford Construction. Like the crane number actually came down significantly because they had budgeted the crane being on site for like a 2-month period, and we were paying every day. But we were able to identify that, no, we're not using the crane every day. So we're paying to remove the crane from site and bring it back when we need it, but that would still be significantly cheaper than
Than
keeping
keeping
it.
it.
Yes. So we went back and we did that. They did do their due diligence with all the subcontractors. There was a company that we felt was asking for a little bit too much money, and we got our own estimate separate from theirs, and it was comparable. So they were right on the money. So that's the process we went through. Unfortunately, it is higher than what I was hoping for. I was hoping more like a $2.5 million. But we have all the budget numbers here. Now, we're to the point, and the reason why we're bringing this to you right now is that we have to begin to issue contracts, like for the wall panels, for example. If we keep delaying it, then we may be in trouble trying to get them on time. So even though some of these numbers are still on the budget phase, we cannot change them to a contract unless we have an approved budget to work with.
Which of the 3 solutions did you choose? You had shared with us there were options.
Yeah, I forgot
Sorry,
to
we're
bring-
drifting into the bond
No,
report.
no, that's okay. I'm saying, we looked at rebuilding it the way that it was. That proved to be the most costly one, and I forgot that document. I was gonna bring it with me to tell you, but it was significantly, probably $2 million more than this, because it will not meet current code, so we were gonna have to reinforce the existing structure that will be supporting this. So we discarded that one. The other solution was do what we're doing right now, but build it on site instead of having it pre-manufactured. And if I recall, I'm going from memory, so it's not going to be an accurate number, but if I recall, it was about $200,000 to $300,000 more expensive to go that route than the pre-manufacture. So we're going with the pre-manufacture option, which what it is, they in the factory they use metal studs. They build it on site, and they apply the finish, and they apply all the insulation, everything is done on the shop, and then they bring it and lift it in place. So because it's being done that way, it proved to be cheaper than if we built it on site.
I have two questions for you. One, with the bricks that are going to be saved, are we going to do what was suggested? Because I think that is a unique opportunity to not only just engage with community, but also get the scholars involved in the situation. That's the first. And then the second one was, because I think you probably be able to answer both. That's why I'm doing this. The second one is, with us having the construction academy out there, is there opportunity for our scholars to participate in the rebuilding or parts of that process where they can get involved with it as well? So there's some real equitable on-hand training or accessibility that they can have in regards to rebuilding their school in a sense.
Okay, the first question.
Yeah.
So the short answer is yes, but I'm gonna have to tell you that I'm getting a lot of pushback.
Oh, that's shocking.
I'm getting pushback from my team, from the contractor side, because they're looking at how much time is gonna take for us to actually salvage the bricks. We have to take some care to make sure that we're not destroying the bricks. So we're going to settle with a number, specific number,
Sure.
and that's what we're gonna do.
Yep.
And then the rest we will probably dispose of.
Just out of clarity, I
You want one.
assumed that you were doing that anyways.
Okay, okay.
It would be impossible to save every
Brick
brick
by
that
brick.
comes
Yeah.
off of
Yeah.
that, but I just
Good.
thought maybe there would be
Good.
a set number, so that's perfect. That's what I
But
was-
yes, I'm getting some frowns and some dirty looks because of the suggestion, because it does take time to actually clean them
makes sense.
and put them aside. But we will explore that and try to do that the best we can. The answer to your second question, that's probably it's going to require more conversation, because there are certain legalities and safety issues that we need to consider. Having underage students, underage people on a construction site brings some tremendous liability. And at this point, I'm not so sure Rockford will be okay with that from a business liability perspective, but that doesn't take away the fact that we could still find something that they could be a part of that will be safe for them.
And
to
as
do.
a something, like, that would be a missed opportunity in my eyes to not engage a program that is already embedded in that school for that same purpose. So I just,
If my assumption of who the contractor is that's providing the prefab is correct, I would imagine at least a field trip to their facility to see,
That
right.
would be perfect.
Yeah,
I
they would
think
do a
that we
great
can
job
do.
at that.
I think it speaks to the volume of, like, we're
Yeah.
connecting them to the work that's actually being done in their facility, in the school that they attend on the daily, and be able to get some applicable behind the scenes knowledge in real time. Like, who can, we're asking for the perfect slice and we're getting it. So.
Yeah.
My knowledge of what the lead teacher in that program has been doing was a connection to the superintendent on site from Rockford, and being able to participate and at some level in progress meetings and some of the, So some of those connections are happening already, from my understanding.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have been invited to attend progress meetings and walkthroughs. I know that they have
Yeah.
been part of that.
Maybe they could clean some bricks too.
Maybe that's what we can do. Maybe
Yeah,
we can see
right.
if they can do that.
Yeah.
We-
Free labor.
I know, that's not what we're looking for either. However, it would connect them to ultimately the work of
Well,
etching and,
They get to handle,
materials.
the materials.
That's part of it.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I think if there's a way, my suggestion would be, because this is a suggestion, I'm not telling you, my suggestion would be if there's a way to work with the communications department around capturing pictures and storytelling around this. This is a very unique opportunity that our scholars are going to be involved in. So to even capture pictures of the aspect of them being engaging with outside entities into their work, and be able to get maybe a few student testimonies from the program to talk about what, the involvement or the intentionality behind the district and partners of the district to bring them along with that process is something that when we talk about a world-class district, that's what comes to mind about that storytelling side that I'm hoping we include in that, because that's a way to capture that. So that would just be a suggestion that I would recommend us being able to do for this particular piece. I think it's an opportunity that we should definitely take advantage of.
Great
Great.
idea. Thank you.
Okay, any other specific questions about the increase so that we can perform these repairs?
Just thank you for informing us and keeping us informed about this.
Thank you.
Okay, we've officially made it to the end of the purchasing agenda, which means I am looking for a motion to move forward a recommendation to the full board for approval.
I motion.
We have a
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we'll move forward to our February financial statements.
In general, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, financial statements are tracking as I would expect. I'm just going to highlight a couple things. For one of the items I'm going to look at is accrued salaries and benefits related to withholdings and payroll taxes. For the newer board members, and a refresher for those of you that have been on the board a little bit. For our teachers, many of them elect to get paid over the full year rather than just the school year. So we have a methodology that we call escrow, where there's calculated earning days for the work days that they work. We bank the money on it, and then like over Christmas break where they have time off, but they're not working, they still get a full paycheck. We draw out of the escrow account. As we're coming into spring break and they're not working, they'll still get a regular paycheck. We'll draw out of this account. So that's what that $3 million, $3.8 million is. Fluctuates throughout the year. At the beginning of the year, if depending on the number of days they work before they get paid, it may actually end up being negative at the beginning of the year. It builds up through Christmas break. It usually drops down after Christmas break. It builds up. At spring break, should see a little dip after that as well, and then it will continue to build up to pay the staff after the school year ends through end of June, July, and the first part of August typically. So that's just kind of a little background of what that $3.8 million is. It's just the timing from when they work and what they actually get paid. It helps the employees get the same paycheck
Consistency, yeah.
every pay period.
Makes sense.
Thank you.
And the other thing I was just going to point out, on the state sources, on general fund, you see we're only at 40-some percent. A lot of our state aid, I know it's really small print. Sorry.
No,
There's a lot of information on our financial statements, but yeah, that's one. State aid, we get payments October through August. So they come in monthly payments. So that's where it typically will lag, because when we start to get payments towards the end of October, we're already into our second quarter of our fiscal year. And then we get our last two payments for this fiscal year in July and August. So it's a timing issue with the state, and so state aid typically will lag behind all the other percentages. So those are just a couple things I wanted to highlight that seem a little strange when you just look at the statements. Everything else is tracking as I would expect for this time of year.
Just a quick question. I'm sure you don't have the time to explain it now, and I don't know if we want to stay for the explanation, but could we get a presentation on like why do the payouts come out in those specific times? And I feel like it just doesn't necessarily match with the school year, and I'm just curious, and I don't know if it's something that's simple as that's just how they want to do it, or if it's got some history to it.
The short answer is because the state has an October to September fiscal year, they changed our state aid payments to align to their fiscal year, not ours. So.
I'll have to talk to our friends at the state legislature about that and see if.
The challenges of the state having a different fiscal year
Yeah,
than the school
okay.
district. So.
I'm just curious about that. So, thank you.
Yep. So, if nothing else on the statements, know if,
Yeah, any other questions about the financial statements? Okay, anything further on bond updates? Welcome back, Mr. Smart.
Thank you. Yes, I have just a few other things I thought that you would find of interest and you may want to know. Continuing with the wall, I just wanted to share the schedule, the preliminary schedule that we have right now. And maybe we can schedule a little field trip for all of you.
Yes.
On the week of between July 13 and July 26 is when we're planning on having the wall system installed. So we'll be using the crane. And of course, I'll keep you updated if this changes, which it could. And the anticipated total completion of that wall restoration or repair is the first week in August. So again, to emphasize, this additional work is not changing the original deadline for the project. This is in addition to what we were doing, and that's what we're also paying additional fees for that. Other things about the bond, we are starting phase 5 a little early. That doesn't mean that we're ahead of schedule. That just means that we are making changes to the schedule to allow us to move into the building for the school year in August with plenty of time. Last year, we were scrambling. I mean, we're talking hours before students were walking in. We were still dealing with things. So Rockford has been working with us to try to see how we can create a little bit more time for GRPS to get ready for school. So we're going to start phase 5 a little bit sooner. We are actually moving some functions into spaces that have been completed, so that way we can start on those a little earlier. We're already planning the move out and move in for the Montessori, Grand Rapids Montessori, the Fountain Building. We already entered a contract with a moving company to help us, and we're working with the staff. The staff has been great on this. They actually are coming up with ideas and suggestions to help us. So
Wonderful.
it's greatly appreciated working with them that way. On a cautious note here, we're still having some supply chain problems. The transformer and some other electrical panels that were supposed to arrive in May, we've been notified that delivery date has been pushed to July. Now, if they get here in July, we're still fine. The contractor is planning on that. But we are already starting to look into contingency plans if the supply companies end up delaying the delivery of those transformers and panels. If it comes after July, then we're going to have to come up with another plan to be able to have power in our buildings come August when our students come back. So I just wanted to just put that there. As of right now, it's July, and we can work with that. If there is any further delays, I will let you know. Sometimes it seems unfair. We're kind of it's not much we can do about these companies when they're delaying like that, so we're just going to look at contingency plans. And I think that's all I have for the bond update.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Smart. Ms. Cribbs, I think that concludes our agenda for today. So if there's nothing further, we'll adjourn the meeting. Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.